I've worked with quite a lot of vendors, Fortune 500 and major other folks out there in the industry. These are my contact details. They're just here. They're not at the end. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, please feel free to. I've created this email just for this event so that no one can fish me. So, all right. Okay. Topic of the day: security architecture and adventure. So, how many folks here work in security architecture and feels it's adventure looking into the architecture every day? Hands up. Anyone feels that way? Okay, great. Because I get fascinated when I go out and see, do the reviews or perform due diligence. I get fascinated by the things I see out there proposed by vendors, business, whosoever, project teams, right? And they would be like, I'm like, wow, okay. Example, everyone gets an admin role on this application because it's just 5 people who needs to have this application. So everyone is now super admin on the application. This is something we find out a lot, and those admins can do whatever they want, right? So I'll start with this, but our cybersecurity team is always working on it, right? So those adventures, they love those adventures. They turn those adventures into opportunities, right? So, idea of today's talk, I will not be just talking about adventures. There's so many of them. I can talk about them about days and days. But what we'll talk about today, we're going to think and talk about building an enterprise security practice, right? The concept of security architecture and the security architecture framework. And most important, how we can come up with a assessment or that can help us improve that framework, right? So normally when we see in an organization, security architecture can be seen from two different views, right? One is everything that falls under security comes into security architecture, right? It'll be SecOps, assurance, red teaming, blue teaming, all can fall under it. There is another version of it that I like to I'm presenting here, which is security architecture should be something that is standalone and then is helping our folks in operations, in assurance side, in the security GRC side, and build it all up to the security posture. So there's one security posture that we think we should achieve, and then all these it drills down. There's a tree that forms under that security posture. Will be like, yes, we want to do threat hunting, we want to do pen testing, vulnerability management, we want to establish a good security architecture of applications, systems, posture, right? And then there's our blue teaming, red teaming side, and then there's our GRC side who's doing the policies. Now, it is possible that some organizations are small teams, right? Have small security teams, budgets and all, and they might be wearing multiple hats. And there are other organizations that would be like, yeah, okay, we have these bandwidth and manpower. We can do this, right? And that some are doing that, right? We'll see the role of security assessment as a shift left approach. The presenter before me did a really good job at that. And yesterday on a panel, we was listening to Tanya and others where they were talking about shift left from a DevSecOps standpoint. We're going to think of shift left from a perspective of building a secure architecture and how an assessment can be implemented in that way. We'll understand where assessment can be applied, how it can be built, and we'll understand how to kick off the overall process. Now, this is something that is the goal is to understand the overall strategy of it. It's not something that will be built in a day. So, okay, what is security architecture? So, first thing that came into my mind, my best friend, ChatGPT. I went to ChatGPT and I asked, what is security architecture? Right? And ChatGPT gave a definition of the components like it's security layering, network segmentation, there should be access control, monitoring and response, and compliance and risk management. And there's a lot more to it, but the initial answer from ChatGPT that we got, everyone is using ChatGPT here, right? There's no one that is like, now we don't use chatbots because they steal our information. No? No one thinks that? Okay. Okay. I'm the only one? Okay. Okay. So, what is security architecture, right? Some of my findings that I've seen, right, is security architecture means the strategic design of your security controls in the organization, right? It helps align cybersecurity with business goal. Very important. We want to align with business goal, business vision. What is the mission of our organization? Right? It is unique, different for every business. It helps enable gap analysis, right? Rather it be a threat risk assessment or we doing whatever. But when we are trying to build a strong security architecture, one of the initial things that give us is a gap analysis, right? Of what gaps, risks exist in our environment today. And then the final product, what we want to be a final product out of this is a framework that is supported through something we can call assessment, right? Which helps us build it, right? It helps us build the framework, the assessment, and the process that if we send something out to a business, it's not a surprise for them. From business, I mean anyone in the technology who's doing a project, bringing a new application, new vendor, standing up a new platform. It should not be a surprise for them. It should be a process that everyone understands. It should be familiar questions that goes out every time, and they know that security team is going to ask us, or security architecture folks is going to ask us about these questions every time. It is more of like becoming a habit of bringing that into design. It's kind of a culture shift. Okay. um, what concepts falls under security architecture, right? There's so many of them, so many. But zero trust, it was quite a thing a couple of years back before AI. Everyone was marketing around zero trust. You can buy product and it'll do zero trust in your environment. It'll just implement zero trust. Anyone did that? I did it. Failed. No product does zero trust. No product. It's how you deploy it, how your culture or organization is. Okay. But there are other concepts goes into it. And some are here enablers due to some controls, right? There's more to it, but I can only take so much. It's a vast topic. I can, as I said, can speak about it for days and days. So zero trust, defense in depth, enabled by security through security. Anyone? No? Okay. Network security, application security, cloud security, and so on, right? But I've highlighted two items here that I really want to talk about. First is security through security. It is not really a concept that comes under security architecture, but it comes natural, right? So what is security by through security? It's like if an attacker or an outsider don't know my system, they don't know what's in my system, they cannot hack it, right? It is by protecting the secrecy of your systems, not really implementing security controls and best practices. It should not be the practice when we are practicing security or when we are doing security through security, because it's like no one's gonna know it. We can keep passwords as admin123, and no one's gonna know because it's just admin123. No one knows it outside. So that should not be there. Another is balance between usability and security, right? I don't want my users to click on a authenticator or OTP every 5 minutes, right? There have been known attacks around it now, but I don't want to make it so secure that it's difficult to use by my business folks, by my IT teams, right out there. But I don't want to make it so simple that they can set up. I love passwords. Admin123 is my favorite password. So I don't want folks to set passwords at 123. So a control on it is we put complexity, password rotations, minimum characters, all that kind of stuff. So usability and security sometimes says it goes directly in proportional if in terms of physics, but that's what it is not really that. It's about how you balance both things and play hand in hand, right? Okay. Too much. We have talked so far about security architecture, concepts that fall under it, right? But how about we start? Where to start with it? Now, this is a known knowledge out there, but how do we start with it, right? CIA, everyone knows it. It's a CI triad, confidentiality, integrity, availability, right? Think about it. And then think about the systems, platforms, users, applications that fall under it, right? What will be the impact of so if, for example, right, if there's an HR system and everyone has access to that HR system and someone changes the integrity of that system, right? What will be the impact on the business? The integrity has changed now. If there is a crown jewel, very important application for your business, and it's down in business hours, right? It's not available. There's no redundancy. There's no backup. What will happen in those scenarios, right? These are hypothetical scenarios, might not exist, but these are some scenarios that we think about. Think about sensitive data, where that data is stored, who's having access to that data, third parties, right? Things like supply chain vectors are very important when it comes to sensitive data, because when supply chain kind of attack happens, so data is most important key that we're trying to protect, along with our systems, people, everything else, right? And think about integrations. There is, in our environments, there's no standalone application that is working all on its own. There are a lot of integrations, APIs running at the back end, and these APIs are like running in milliseconds, and there are thousands of these. Think about those, and very important, think about, assume if breached, what will happen if we are breached, right? What are the controls in place that are stopping an attacker from lateral movement, right? Do you have right roles and permissions in place? Do you have network segmentation in place, or do you have a flat network? These are some of the questions that you would go and think about when you start thinking that, okay, let's create a architecture practice, right? All right, great idea, right? Good idea. My cat says so. So it's but I don't know my full inventory. It's a legacy system. I have no idea about its integration. It was there before I joined, right? How many guys have, or how many people have heard this? It was here before I joined, so I have no idea, right? I don't have all my crown jewels listed. We didn't. We so some would be. We've done an audit in 2016. That was one-time audit requirement, and that's when we had crown jewels. We have no updates after that. That's exists today, right? These are things you find out when you go talk to teams out there, to procurement teams and stuff. You will find out things that are missing. Should things would not be up to date until you have a really fine-grained automated process that is working and have a huge security budget, millions of dollars. Um, think about APIs. APIs running at the backend, right? But who knows how many APIs? What system is running what APIs? I don't know, right? And then think about the AI. Everyone is adopting AI at a speed of light, right? I don't even know what security controls should go in it. There's so many security research going on in the field of AI, but everyone wants to adopt AI, chatbots, translators, right? All these, and there are so many vendors out there and partners who are integrating these AI features into the applications as a part of auto updates or updates, right? Which we see. Oh, now I see on my social media there's a new AI chatbot that I can ask question on, and surprise, it's training on your data, right? Recently, if you've heard the LinkedIn news or checked your LinkedIn settings, there's a toggle in your LinkedIn too for AI, which is saying AI might be training on your data. If you don't want that, go and disable it. I don't. I like people train on my data. It's false data. So good, right? But so broken APIs, right? Here's an example where a user asks a joke. Why did the chicken cross the road, right? And users like, punchline, come on, that's the time, punchline. Punchline to what? You didn't create a full good established API. You don't have the punchline. And I won't even go into user training and all that, but this is a real-time example where where it was practiced that report fish button was actually embedded with a malicious URL, and it was an obvious malicious phishing email. So everyone, as soon as it saw that oh, it is 100% a phishing email because it was crafted that way, they went down on that report fish button and clicked it. That is the training given out, right? That's what folks are supposed to do. So report it. Okay. So coming back onto building strong architecture, right? Uh, so I made a transcript because there's so much I might get confused. So ignore this. These are few concepts, right? How to start with the process. As I said, think of it from a high level. Start with creating a security architecture framework that supports your security posture on the top. Top is the security posture. Then comes the security architecture framework, and it should support it, right? And it should be custom to your organization need. There's standards out there that can help you with this. Nest, COBIT, ISO, CIS, WASP, MITRE. None of this will be off the shelf fitting your environment or your organization's need. For most scenarios, it is mostly an hybrid approach. You read Nest best practices, maybe cybersecurity framework. You go to ISO 27001 to read those, right? And then you come up with what actually should align with your organization, what should go with it, right? Based on that framework, build a security assessment to support it, right? And apply that assessment as a preventative control. I actually am loving it. Everyone's talking about shift left. So shift left, right? Before you bring things on board, before you onboard it, you apply this assessment. You apply it as a preventative control that it supports a defensive control, right? It supports your blue team, red team. It supports the tool you have in your environment that is saying, okay, we are going to detect as soon as we see a ransom, right? And before going to that stage, apply it before that folks are not able to go till that stage, right? I'm not saying it's not important. Everything, this is a life cycle, but shift left on this methodology, right? Very important. Make the business aware of the assessment framework and the process, because this can be seen as a hurdle sometimes. But what you can do is provide trainings, provide examples to the business folks or the IT teams. What you're trying to achieve, actually, you're trying to identify risks at a very early stage, and very important, you are trying to be in line with project timelines, right? You are not stopping a project on Thursday when it's going to go live on Friday. You are giving your security requirements at a very early stage of a project, life cycle of a project, and in maybe first, second, third week of the design, right? So train your management, train the users to think of it like a process improvement and a culture improvement, rather than saying it can block, it can produce delays, right? Okay, what can be in a security architecture assessment? Security boundaries. That's all you care about now? Yes. Okay. So anything that connect dots. So when you think about creating a security architecture assessment, you can go on different levels. So one is your so this part of it will be when you're talking about the vendors, when you're talking about any platform, internally built applications, internally built systems, right? In those scenarios, right? Ask questions. The assessment starts with Q&A. Build this Q&A that applies to everyone, to your environment, and send this Q&A to everyone every time. Same questionnaire. So as I said earlier, right, folks become familiar with these questions and the practices we are trying to implement in the culture, in the environment. So these are every time same kind of questions, and this is not just one time questionnaire. There'll be follow-ups back and forth, but start with it, right? Ask questions around authentication, MFAs, permissions, roles, right? Data security. What kind of encryption in transit, encryption at rest, where is the encryption keys being stored, what kind of tokens are used if it's a system to system authentication. Nowadays, some recent things I've seen is refresh token being used a lot when a system to system authentication is happening. There's a authentication token, and then there's this refresh token, and refresh token is not expiring. Its lifetime is set to infinite, but actually no one is going out there till that depth asking how's the refresh token taking place, what is the expiry of the refresh token, what is the refresh token doing to the authentication token. So these are the kind of questions that you go ahead and ask when you do this Q&A, right? Logging monitoring, very important aspect. We see folks doing logging and monitoring all the time, but locally on a system, on a server. And when attack or a incident happens, first thing, it's locally on a system. Someone goes in there, tampers them, change them, delete them, right? No point of creating logs if they can be deleted, changed, tampered. No point. Always, as a practice, as a very early practice, make sure that logs are being stored at a location or at a storage where they cannot be changed, altered with. Public has 3 buckets, best practice. No, I'm kidding. Don't do public S3 buckets. So use log analytics workspaces. Use there's ways out there, right? If you're using S3 bucket, make sure you're securing it. There are theme solutions that are giving these kind of functionalities to store your log, who have access to log. Application security. Application security funds this up. If there's a application SaaS application that is a part of your project, think about it. Ask questions around validation. Take best practices from OWASP top 10. It's out there. You don't have to create anything from zero up. The practice is there. You have to go read through it and then think what should be the right questions I'm asking from these top 10 questions, because OWASP have literally gone into each and every top 10 they've given and explained it through. They have the tactics, they have examples, they have mitigation strategies, controls. They have built a complete format of it. Follow it. Networks. Ask about networks, firewalls. Ask about if you have a flat network, if it's being implemented in a flat network. Bring up things like microsegmentation, macro segmentation, zonings at a very early stage. This is a strategy that if we start bringing up, and sometimes you'll see some projects standing up if it's not there, or if it's there, getting utilized at a very good format or way, right? All this shift left. When we are doing this at a very early stage of a project, when it comes in, our application comes in, a configuration comes in. We are doing it at first point. We're not doing it at the end when everything is built, and now you're coming up with these are the security risks and coming up with the timeline, we'll fix it in 2 years, right? That should not be the ideal approach. The ideal approach is you give them requirements at very early stage and say, let's plan it till we come into production, if possible. If not, let's see what mitigating controls we can put in, right? Okay. So this is from a perspective when we're thinking internal applications developed, platforms, vendors brought in, right? These kind of scenarios. But usually I see APIs, right? I've seen in the in industry, the practice that I've talked to various folks is around APIs, right? What kind of questions is asked on APIs when we say there is integration at the backend, right? This should all fall under it, right? Here are some examples of the recent this year's attacks that happened, or breaches that happened due to weak APIs, right? 400,000 Live 360 users' phone numbers were leaked. It was unsecure API. Basically, if I go into more depth of it, it was an unauthenticated endpoint for an API. You don't need authentication on that. It was because I think they thought phone numbers are not sensitive information. Or hackers abused the API of millions of Auth MFA phone numbers, and then they did a SIM swap attack to verify MFA. So they had somehow passwords, and now for the second factor, they have phone numbers with SIM swap attack, and they were able to verify the second factor and get into the system. That's how this happened actually. So what are APIs? APIs. Think of APIs as roads in the town. I recently came up with this example with discussing with one of my very close friends. So these are roads. What does road do? They interconnect city, right? All the transportation happen on these roads. And what do we do to make roads secure? There's so many rules around it. We have anyone has to drive on a road, have to get a driver license. There's signs, the speed limits, stuff, right? APIs are same. They're taking your data, interconnecting your application. They're enhancing your application's capabilities to fetch data, fetch functionalities from other applications, dependencies. So why not secure them? Secure them. It's similar things, right? Here we are protecting people, there we're protecting data. Both are very important. So at a very early stage, right? Again, I would keep saying at a very early stage. So, okay. So concept of secure by design, secure during at build process is one of the best practice that I've seen so far, have helped various organizations I've worked with. OWASP API security project. This was one of the recently they updated in maybe 2 years back. They came up with OWASP have these different categories, right? I track OWASP so much because they keep on updating it. It's a live living document. right? They have connect these for SaaS. They have best practices for application security. For API, they also have some stuff for AI. We'll talk about later. But same concept. They have it there. They have explained it very well. Take best practices from that. Ask questions around that best practices. Documentation for developer. This just don't go for the APIs, but the entire DevOps secure coding stuff. But documentation for developers for APIs, how they should build it, is very important. Folks who are using templates, I don't know. In some industries, I've seen their templates made by developers for their community. They can just download that API template and start coding on the top of that template. Don't have to create everything from base on, right? So if someone is using those kind of templates for automations, how they should start coding it as per the security best practices, and those can be taken from something like OWASP. And OWASP is not the only source. There, NIST have published publications around API security. One of the industry vendors is also doing a great job. I would like to call them out. API Sec University. I don't know if you guys have heard about them. Corey was here last year. They've done a very great job at explaining API security. They have free courses, they have certifications, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys want to see, just search API Sec University in Google, and that'll be the first link you'll be seeing. Okay, implement tools, checks around design phase of it, right? So I've come across this very good flow diagram, which shows an infinite loop. The infinite loop is between API development lifecycle and the API operation lifecycle. So, and the idea is, it says, start from indate. Indate is when the idea is generated to create an API. Start from there, design, develop, test, document, and from document to configuration, deploy, publish, operate. Make an infinite loop of it. Integrate these both things. Keep monitoring on them, and this is the way I think most of this should be established, at least. So again, coming back, what can go in the security security assessment? That is going to help our security framework, and which is going to help our security posture. Okay. All right. Again, security boundaries. API integrations. We ask at the time of assessment what kind of integrations are happening. If the answer is no, it is fine, good, great. But if the answer is yes, again, we go back to the best practices. We ask that Q&As. We document API control standards. We send those standards to the development community at the very beginning when they're starting to develop it, right? Start implementing thorough monitoring on the APIs, right? And API inventory, very important. So when we are bringing new APIs, ensure to add them into your inventory. If it's an automated process, great. If it's not automated process, try to make it automated process. There's tools out there which are for free available. Free tools have their own perks, right? I would not go into that, but there are tools out there that will help you inventorize your APIs, right? And this will really solve a lot of puzzle when we are talking about architecture. All of these best practices I'm saying here should go into your Q&A for the assessment that you do due diligence on at the very beginning. Okay. AI. So this is something I asked, again, ChatGPT. I wrote something about it, actually. Okay. So I asked ChatGPT, what is AI? And it came back, because ChatGPT is my best friend. I ask everything from ChatGPT, because if I start asking my friend these many questions, they'll block me. So I just ask ChatGPT about it, right? So it said, okay, there's a weak AI, narrow AI. It said there's strong AI, general AI, and then it said there's Terminator AI, super intelligent AI. I mean, right? So, and that's when it said super intelligent AI, it's hypothetically passing human intelligence. I'm like, I should have not asked. It's creating panic in me now, right? And losing jobs. No, it can never do that, I think. But overall, what AI's aim is to mix automation with intelligence and bring efficiency into the workplace. Cool. Are there any cybersecurity risks with AI? I don't see any. Anyone see? Okay. You're getting my jokes. Good. I'm bad at it though. Okay. I see cyber risks everywhere. And I've been talking about shift left so much that even my animation will be shifting left, right? It's so much in me. You'll see they're going left, 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 right? So here are some examples recently that we've seen in the industry. Again, there was this example where 100 instances of a malicious AI ML model was seen on a platform, on a Hugging Face platform. It's a artificial intelligence net LLM or natural language vendor that provides it provides a community of collaboration for all AI models. More than 100 instances were seen that were doing malicious back threats into the models, right? Google AI search prompts phishing sites. So it was giving phishing sites as an output where it was taking folks to unwanted Chrome extensions such as iPhone giveaways. Who doesn't want a free iPhone, right? So iPhone giveaways, browser spam subscriptions, and other things. Acts as facing a GDPR complaint recently because you don't know where the chatbot is going to take your data to train it. So that is one concern, GDPR. If your organization has to be compliant with GDPR in any ways or forms, and then integrity issue, huge. AI is not just cybersecurity risk. It has risks ethically, it has risks to integrity, and then cybersecurity is on the top of it. It's a cream. So obviously, uh, musician was charged with 10 million streaming royalties fraud using AI. Even the AI is helping to steal artists' work here. Okay. One thing that I recently came across in the last event at Black Hat this year, someone was presenting around LLMs and how the models, LLMs and RAG and chatbots based on them work. And hallucination and prompt injections, they go they go in the model. It's how the model works. You can change it. There are controls on it. There are mitigating controls on it, but that's how the model works. So here's an example. This is me typing in. It's kind of same example, but I typed it both in chat, Copilot and ChatGPT. That's I think the most used chatbots today. And I was like, I want to shore off a river with nothing but a goat, and I've got a boat. I want to carry two items. How can I do that? So you see the answer, right? Copilot is awesome. It's saying, take your cabbage, wolf. Again, saying wolf. I won't take a wolf with me on a boat. I would die. It would eat me. But this is the kind of things that one should be aware of when we are relying on Chat GPT, chatbots for information, right? And nowadays, even if you're using Chat GPT more recently, it's even giving a disclaimer at the very end. The model might be using your information to train, right? This is the disclaimer that ChatGPT is giving now. So just FYI. How about securing it? No need. It's secure by design, secure by default. It's it's the Copilot thing that Microsoft present. I don't want to go into it. Copilot Studio, but if someone wants to talk about it, please feel free to after the talk. Right, I'm here. Um, Again, we don't have to develop anything from zero up. There are standards out there. So I've taken what each of this does, right? The Nest AI RMF, it talks about security, privacy, ethical controls around AI. The OWASP top 10 LLM provides good control on the LLM based AI models, chatbots, and very important, Mitre. Mitre is a living knowledge base. Mitre Atlas is a living knowledge base of advisory tactics and techniques on against the AI embedded systems. And this is based on real world observations. It's a living document, it gets updated regularly, right? To take guidance from it if you're making a threat risk model against an AI. So you can apply this. Treat external data as input. If the AI model knows the data, it can leak the data, and uh, keep your traditional it would not keep your traditional RBAC or permission model up to this limit. So it have access to everything. If once it reads the data, it can leak the data. And AI chatbot can be controlled. The output can be controlled to it, right? I can train it on a wrong data set for a targeted audience, and I can influence it through that. Design downstream components as if they are internet facing, right? Anything that is coming down from your AI model, have some kind of check at that point. Always treat it as if it's coming from internet. For all the other controls you're taking from internet, you have some controls out there, right? Folks have implemented some sort of technology and not name any. But how about AI? This one should start implementing these controls on AI as well, and monitoring of AI applications and chatbots. There's a lot of new market vendors coming up with this technology, which is great. And for they would provide you insights on what your users and what your applications on the chat or using AI is doing. What is going outside, what is coming inside, what kind of attacks that I've seen. If it was injection attack, jailbreak kind of scenarios, it would give alert. It is more of a SecOps side that can take care of it, but this is a part that you should ask when you're doing this due diligence. Again, coming back, so security architecture assessment, security framework, security posture, right? Coming back at the very low assessment, what should it do? And we should start asking questions around AI. Does your application platform have AI? It have features on AI? Does it digest or integrates with my data, right? Is it training on my data? If it's not training on my data, what it is doing with my data, right? How is someone claiming that this is only internal to your organization? One of the great myths is the data is only internal to the organization. If the chatbot or your LLM is probable to injection tax or I would say jailbreak, right? This nothing is internal at that point. Zero trust, right? I'll actionable advice at the very end, right? Design and create a security architecture framework that fits your organization. Understand the new attack surfaces. It's not just the traditional way that we'll implement RBAC or we'll take a tool from industry that'll do defense in depth and zero trust by default. Build security assessments to support your framework, rather be a manual assessment, you're using a tool or using a threat risk assessment. Before this talk, we've heard about it. Adopt shift left, add evaluations to multiple technologies. You don't have to create assessment for every platform. If you're doing it, you can have one single assessment that would apply to all. It can be a smart assessment where people can go and say it is out of scope. Are you using API? No, it's out of scope. It should not ask more questions. So there are ways to build these, right? If you want to talk more about it, we can discuss. There are existing frameworks and standards out there. Again, I've said this multiple times. We don't have to build anything from ground up until we are researching on it. Feel free to do so. I would include me. But there are existing frameworks out there. Use them. They're of great knowledge. They're living documents. They're being updated regularly. Thank you. You're awesome. You've heard me for 30 minutes. So thank you so much. Ah, I have time for questions. Oh, okay.
So I just want to ask about
She's bringing the mic. So
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I want to ask about AI and corporate data. So if you have an AI being used in a corporate environment, it will have access to all the data that is being fed. What about the data that is sitting on storage in the corporate environment? Is it possible for AI to have access to that data?
it is. If there is an integration. So for example, AIs are having a lot of out of the blue or out of the box integrations with a lot of platforms, right? If they while you're building the AI chatbot, they call it creator. So creator of a chatbot, right? If you're build at time of creation, if you're building it in a way that there's an integration, but you're not utilizing the data, there's an integration, it have access to the data. As soon as you give an initial link, it have access to the data. Yep.
My name is Ramesh. You were able to keep me engaged throughout the presentation because the scenarios that you described, you discussed during the presentation, like about the legacy system. I've come across those questions at one point or other in my career, so the presentation was brilliant. Now, coming to the question, you mentioned during the presentation that that you implemented security architecture framework at the place where you work. So my question is that how long did it take you to incorporate this process into your environment, and how were you able to convince your management? Because usually this security assessment, it delays the overall project delivery timeline.
Right. So um, uh, not just one organization. I've seen this working in multiple organizations, right? The idea behind this, right, is training the management and bringing out value out of it, right? Showing them at a very early stage that you've identified a risk that could have exploited, right? For example, MFA being sent to SMS, on SMS, OTPs being sent to SMS, which is probable to a SIM swap attack, right? So these kind of scenarios, metrics you take to the management saying we are going to stop these kind of attacks at the very beginning of a project, and explain that this will be a life cycle. This will not put delays. This will be going along the life cycle of the project, right? Timelines, this is a culture change. It takes time. It is not a weeks, months, quarters job. It is years, right? It takes, you start something, you get buy-in, you create a process, you train folks, right? Say for the first year, and you start doing this. And slowly, first of all, at the very beginning, you'll get pushback, 100%. It's some developer community folks or project management side would say, no, we're not going to do this. This has never been happened before and all that. But with time and with management support, maybe depending on how your organization is, it's a multi-year project kind of thing. But at one point, it will start supporting itself. People will be aware of it, and they will start implementing it by themselves.
Thank you.
Just to have one question.
Hello. Hi, Tumraj. Thank you. Great presentation. I want to ask a question on you defined one of the challenges as lack of information. People don't know it's a legacy system, it was before us. Another big one was striking the balance between usability and security. How do you define that sweet spot where usability and security both have their say and it's a secure architecture?
Great. When my manager says good, that's no. So what I've seen is it's a lot of back and forth with the users. Sometimes you would go with a control that when you start using yourself, you'll feel, no, this is too much, right? I do that. When I suggest a control, before suggesting that control out to the folks, I try that control on myself, right? I might come, say, for example, if someone is using their BYOD, I would say encrypt your disk, right? Your disk should be encrypted. And then I would come back to my system and say, how I'm going to encrypt my disk, right? All those steps. So first of all, you apply it on yourself. And then there's possibility you are a security guy or IT person who understands it, can deal with it. Have someone test it in the business side. Take advice. Have a group that you can go to and say, can you look into it? Go to C-suite sometimes, or folks who are supporting C-suite, right? Talk to them. Say, these are the things we are going to implement. You think we will get the buy-in? Do you think it's too much? And that will really solve the problem. And you'll not get the pushback when you'll present it on a final day, because you've spread it so much and you've talked about it so much to all the folks that the mindset is already there. That yes, this is bringing value, and this is also bringing balance along with it. So, yeah.
So would you suggest that governance would drive this process in terms of making sure that people are following the secure architecture? You're implementing policies around it, standards around it, and procedures around it. So would it be the governance? Would it be the driving force, or is the business?
It depends. It really, great question. It really depends what government wants to move towards it, right? I think there's two segments, right? This private sector and this government sector. Both governance. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I misheard. Governance. Absolutely. So how are you going to do this, right? You have an assessment. You can't just throw your assessment to people and they'll be like, where is it written in the governance side that we have to follow it? Is it in your information security policy, right? Or is it somewhere in your governance structure that we have to follow it? You always you'll get this question, where does it say in the documentation or in the policy that this has to be done? So governance has to drive it, right? In the beginning I've said governance, this process is going to support governance, give support, take support from governance, SecOps, and the assurance side of the security. No worries.